Hi everyone. So as part of the series of videos on the literature side of the course, which will also involve individual videos about specific texts, I've done this little video here, which as you can see is titled How to Read Properly, which I know sounds ridiculous, but one of the things that I find every year is that students come in and actually struggle with this idea of the way in which you're supposed to engage with bits of literature. Um, Probably because just in the past they've just had things kind of handed to them and told read and understand that, but no one's ever actually explained how to go through the actual step-by-step process of interacting with this kind of thing. So that's what this is for. This is me explaining to you the way in which you should engage with, poetry, short stories, novels, those kind of things, if you want to fully understand them and want to use them in the way that we need to in English and communication courses. So, four steps to this. The first step is that you just read it, and you do that before looking up background context or reading online notes or anything of that at all. Okay, you need to just read it all the way through. If that's a poem, it takes you 2 minutes, and you just read it and let it kind of sink in a little bit. If it's something a bit longer, like a short story or something like that, then you do the exact same thing. But the same even applies for things, for plays and for novels. So like, I remember when I was in university, that this was the same process that we were taught there. And reading a novel to write an essay on it would involve reading the novel two, three, four times. Going through this kind of process, it's important that you start with just reading the text and seeing how you respond to it, and then scribbling down some notes just on very basic first impressions. Themes. What are the kind of big ideas? What do you think it's getting at? What kind of attitude seems to be coming across? Is there anything about particular characters that stands out? Anything about the style? Anything at all that just occurs to you at first? You get that down as an initial note. Once you've done that, go and check anything you don't understand. If we're talking about a poem and there are a few individual words that you do not know what they mean, go and look them up. If you're reading something that's making reference to a particular place, particular historical events, or people, or anything like that at all, after you've done the first reading, go away and do the background reading. Go and figure out what that thing is that's being referred to that you haven't heard of before, because there's a good chance it'll make a difference to your understanding of things like the themes and the text and the way language is being used. But it's important that you do this after a first reading. Don't try and preempt it. I'm not a fan of this approach where, like, before you read Of Mice and Men, you read all about the historical context, because it makes it, students end up focusing too much on analysing the context at that point as opposed to analysing the literature, which is what we really need to get you focused on for the courses that you're doing with me. Once you have looked up the things that you don't know and checked all that kind of background, then we start making the notes. So that's when you start thinking about some actual notes about, right, well, what's going on here? Who's the person speaking? Who's the main narrator? What's the big voice coming out of it? What's the situation that's there? What are the themes being explored? You outline those, and then you read the text again, but you read it with those things at the front of your mind. And as you're going through it that second time, you start to add to your notes. You add in little comments, you put in little references to pages, you add in quotes, whatever it is that you feel like doing. But that happens as you then start to do your rereading of the text. But the focus is on big picture things. So as I say, themes, big ideas, stuff like that. Once you've done that, that then allows you'll have a set of notes that'll be starting to come together that'll be based on themes and big ideas that'll be talking to you about the way characters interact. Once you've done that, you can then go back into the text and start looking for the things that you were probably told to look at first a lot of the time previously, going looking for metaphors and word choice and that kind of stuff. That stuff's only relevant if it's in context of what the text is trying to do. So you've got to do your big ideas, your themes, that kind of stuff first. Once you've done all of that, the end of the process involves us looking at a text and trying to figure out how a particular metaphor works in the context of trying to help us understand a particular character. And the thing you'll have seen in these slides, this thing about adding to your notes as you go, sets of notes should never, ever, ever be finished. I see too many students who write up a set of notes in like September, and then you see the notes again in March and nothing's happened. Your understanding of the text, your understanding of the course, of the tasks that you're completing, of the different linguistic techniques, all of that should develop as you go through the year. And if that's all developing, then your notes should develop as well. So all of your notes should be working documents, things that change as you go through the course. And if you do that, if you have notes that are an actual ongoing document and you follow this process for the best way to actually engage with literature to get as much out of it as possible, then you should find that even people who find this a bit of a daunting prospect, this idea of having to actually properly engage with literature, this process should make it much easier and more accessible for you as well. So that's it. As usual, any questions, any problems, any concerns at all, send me a message and I'll get back to you, and if there's anything that I need to explain a bit more clearly, then that won't be a problem. Thank you very much.